Welcome back to Stewart Science. Today we're talking about one of my favorite topics, the definitions for theories, laws, and hypotheses. Now this is going to be a pretty short video, but here's the thing. You probably have this wrong in your head right now. So what makes this hard is not that it's complex or challenging or difficult to explain or do. What makes this hard is that you've either been taught the wrong thing or you're thinking the wrong thing right now. So as always, I'll start with some definitions, then I'll give you some examples. So the first definition is what a hypothesis is. This is the easiest part of this learning target. Is a hypothesis is something we're all familiar with. It's a plausible explanation for why something happens. It's your best guess at why something is taking place. Now, this is actually what is usually meant in English when people say theory. They say, oh, I have a theory. No, they don't have a theory. What they mean is, oh, I have a hypothesis. So the hypothesis is the term in the scientific community that just means guess. The problem is, and what you are thinking wrong right now, is that the word theory means some weak guess that needs more testing to be proven. That is not what a theory means in the scientific community. I'll say it again. If you say, oh, that's just a theory, I immediately think less of you as a person. And now you should immediately think less of anyone else who says that, because that should trip in your head. Oh, what they mean is that's just a hypothesis. A hypothesis is a guess, an explanation that's possible but not proven for why something happens. It's still questionable. It needs data. It needs testing. It's not proven. That's different than a theory, because a theory has to be thoroughly researched and confirmed again and again and again by tons of scientists, but it also explains why something happens. So basically, when you prove, as much as science can be proven, when you prove that this is why this is happening, that becomes a theory. You have to have tons and tons and tons of evidence behind that. It has to be reproducible by the scientific community. Everyone has to come to an agreement and say, yes, this is what's happening. So when someone says from now on, oh, that's just a theory, think less of them. What they mean is, oh, that's just a hypothesis. I'll say it one more time, because this is so deeply rooted. Again, this is not hard to think about. It's hard to get out the wrong ways you've learned it in the past. A theory is proven as much as it gets. A hypothesis is weak. The problem is when someone says, oh, that's just a theory, what they mean is that's just a hypothesis. So the word theory in regular English and other people has come to mean weak guess. That is not what a theory means in the scientific community. So I might ask you the question, if a theory gets more support and more evidence, what does it become? The answer is it becomes a better theory. It's still a theory because it still answers why something happens. If it is a proven explanation for why, it's a theory. If it's a possible explanation for why, if it still needs more testing, it's a hypothesis. Those words don't mean the same thing in regular English that they mean in the scientific community. And the last definition is a law, a scientific law. This is a description of what always happens. So for example, the law of gravity is what goes up must come down. That's a law. You observe it. If I throw anything up in the air, it comes back down. The theory of gravity is the explanation that's been researched and confirmed and explained by scientists for why something happens. That's the theory. So they answer two different questions. It's like if someone asks you, hey, what's for lunch today? And you said, oh, the cooks are cleaning out the freezer. That doesn't make any sense. You have not answered their question. They asked you what is for lunch, and you answered why that thing is for lunch. Let me give you an example of this. The theory of evolution, people sometimes get up in arms about this, but the theory of evolution is completely supported by the scientific community. There's no big debate in the scientific community about evolution. Now, there's a theory of evolution and a law of evolution. The law says species change over time. Darwin was not the first one to say that. There was a guy named Lamarck before him. Lots of other people have said this too. But the law that you can see in the fossil record is that over time species change. That's the law. That's a description of what is happening. The theory of evolution is that species change over time because different individuals reproduce differently. If something has a better trait that enables it to survive, that trait is more likely to get passed on to the next generation of that individual. If something has a disadvantageous trait, where they have a trait that makes them less likely to have kids, that trait doesn't get passed on, those kids die, they don't reproduce, that genetic line ends. So that idea of natural selection, survival of the fittest, that's the theory of evolution, but the law that people have been seeing for generations and hundreds of years, that species change over time. The law is the what. The theory is the why. This is Mr. Stewart signing off. As always, keep learning no matter what.